I've been on this journey with Reverend Lawrence since back in October last year, September, October. To this point, God has done some great stuff on this platform, and I look forward to continuing to be part of this journey with her on this ministry. So I just want to kind of set you up on how we're going to go. I like conversations, so I would give you opportunity to post your questions in the chat box or raise your hand. Reverend Lawrence would monitor that and ask your questions anytime you have a question, because I want you to really grasp what I'm saying as we talk together, okay? As I was thinking about this presentation and the passage that Reverend Lawrence just read there for us, what you have to get from that passage is the sex is the most potent human experience we can have. And when I do my last session, that connects very deeply with our spirituality. And it is that where God has designed us, that is the highest, deepest experience we could have as humans. But if that is not honored as the way God designed it to be honored, then we become, as that passage Reverend Ruth read to us. And God, many times in the Bible, has referred to the unfaithfulness of his people from a sexual way, being adulterous, being whores, being harlots, because it connects with the depth of the connection and the depth of how much God loves us, and when we betray that love, what that represents in the relationship. And also I was thinking, you know, of all of God's creation, humans are the only of God's creation that could have sex whenever they want. They don't have to wait till they, you know, all of God's animals, you know, they have to be in heat, and they, you know, they don't just have sex with humans. We have the sexual desire, but we are in control of it. We do it whenever we want, however we want, wherever we want. And that has led to such a misrepresentation of how God intended sex, that the world has told us now it's all about, you know, how we, whenever you want it, however you want it, with whoever you want it. But what we are about on this platform is helping to redirect the understanding of sex as God intended it, as God designed it according to the covenant of marriage, and in God's economy of how we are to live. Sex is to be experienced in marriage and marriage alone. So he said in the book of Hebrews, you have to keep the bed undefiled. It is for the two that has become one. So in these next 3 Saturdays, we're going to explore in some depth some of the things that today, what makes for healthy sex. Next week, what creates problems in sex. And then the following week, the connection between our spirituality and our sexuality. There are those who still don't believe that our sexuality and our spirituality has a deep connection. But we're going to look at that 2 Saturdays from now as we explore that together. Okay, so just kind of wanted to set us up there, and see if I can figure out how to share my screen with you here. Here we go, and it's okay. So that's my screen up there, so we can all see that, I hope. All right. So today we're going to talk about healthy sexuality, and what makes sex healthy, that it can be as God designed it to be between a man and a woman in the context of how we designed it. And for the engaged couples and the dating couples on here today, you are having a head start, because you're getting some information in the next 3 Saturdays that's going to help you to avoid a lot of problems that those of us who've been married a long time had to learn and undo and try to fix now, because it has created a lot of problems for us because we didn't have the understanding and the information that you're having. And for those who are married on the platform today, well, hopefully you would learn some things that will help you in order to be able to deal with some things on your own journey, in your own relationship, in terms of your sexuality and your sexual relationship in the marriage. Okay, so our focus is what leads to healthy sexuality. That's what we want to talk about today. So as we as we start that conversation today, there's a slide that I always have at the beginning of all of my presentations. And I use this slide in every presentation I do because I want us to start here, and I want you to understanding who we are and understand the responsibility we have as individuals. So understanding who we are, the first part of who we are is that by nature, God has created us, male, female, tall, short, black, white, lots of hair, little hair, however you describe facial features. God has created us, Psalm 139, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So we know that we are created by God, and in particular way, each of us have our own design, but God has, in his work in creating us, has given us certain physical, emotional, spiritual abilities that's God given. Okay, so we come into the world as God has created us. Then when we come into the world, you experience nurture, and nurture are those years of being raised, and the family we are raised in, and how we are raised. In some of us, we are raised in a healthy family, and we saw love and we saw appreciation, and we were well taken care of. We were nurtured, and so we grew up, and we are very healthy, assertive people who could manage life in healthy ways. And there are those of us who grew up in abusive situation where, and you'll see, I'll talk about some of that a little later here, that we weren't taken care of, we weren't nurtured, we were yelled at, we were told we were stupid, we were always, we were sexually abused, we were physically abused, we were emotionally abused. So all of those things created a lot of problems for us. But in either way, we've been nurtured. That's how we've been nurtured, especially those years, those early years from birth to about 7 or 8. Those are the years, and for those of us on the platform with kids, I want to say to you, and kids are young kids, those are the formative years, and what that child experiences, even from birth, how they're held and how they're cared for, and all through those years, you are setting the foundation for how they're going to develop their personality in terms of being adults, how they learn to be close to people or not trust people, or their own self-worth and self-esteem. You are nurturing that in those years. So it's very important for you to know that that's what you're doing. But regardless of how we were nurtured, we have a choice. And so for everything I will say here for the next 3 Saturdays, I want to say to you, the change that you want is really up to you. Even if you're married and you're saying your spouse, is this way with sex, and they don't like sex, and they don't understand sex, your sexuality is your responsibility. It is never your spouse's fault that you do something sexual. You look at pornography, or you have an affair, or it's never there, regardless of whether your spouse, when we talk about sexual addiction and emotional hurt, whether your spouse is anorexic, don't like sex, don't like you to touch them, you haven't had sex in months, it is your responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your sexuality, for your choices. It is never anyone's fault. Even in our nurturing, when we were abused sexually, and we misunderstood sex, and we didn't know what sex was, and we were mistreated about sex, now we become adults. We have to take responsibility and find the healing we need so we can be healthy sexually and not become promiscuous and say, well, I was abused as a child, so now, that's why I'm this way, or that's why I'm that way. True, but ultimately, you have to take responsibility for your healing, for your wholeness, and you can't put it at the feet of anyone else but you, because you're making the choices going forward. I know that kind of sounds hard for some people, because they think because of the way they've been raised, then this happened to me, so that's why I'm this way. What I say to people is this, and hear me. You may have been victimized during your time of nurturing, but you're not a victim. You have the power to choose. If you allow yourself to remain a victim, that means you remain tethered to the victimization. And the only person could set you free from the victimization, it's you. You have to be willing to want to let it go so you can take responsibility for your healing and your wholeness. So you have been victimized, but you're not a victim. Victims don't take responsibility. They always say, someone did it to me. But once you change that mindset, yes, they did it to me, but I'm responsible for me. I would not allow the people who hurt me so many years ago to continue to have that hold on me 20, 30 years ago, because I'm no one to let go of being a victim. So that's what I mean when I say we have a choice. Okay, we have a choice. Okay, any questions from that slide before I go forward?
No questions are in the chat. Rev, you can move ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on then. We're talking about healthy sexuality. So I just wanted to put this definition up here. Human sexuality is the way people experience and express themselves sexually. This involves biological, erotic, physical, emotional, social, or spiritual feelings, okay? This is the working definition when we talk about sexuality. It encompasses all of who we are. The world has sold us a definition of sex that it's a physical experience and to some extent an emotional experience. I feel good. And as long as I could feel good, I like your body, like, your body looks nice or whatever, and we could have sex and we could feel good, that's it. In God's design, that's not it. It encompasses all of who we are. And that's why Paul talks about sexual sin being such a grievous sin against the body, because it's not just the physical experience, of a vagina and a penis. It is this whole design of this deep, deep connection that God created us for. And so this is the working definition. When we say sexuality, we're talking about the biological, erotic, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual feelings that all comes as the whole person as we engage in healthy sex. Okay. All right. So my question for you then is, and I'd like to get some responses here from you. So here's the question. Why is sex such a difficult subject to talk about in the church? You could open your mic or you could put it in the chat, but just kind of let's talk about that.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning.
I would say because we were educated wrong about it, if you want, even use the word education, and
Okay.
therefore we have a wrong view. So, and one of those views, main view, is that it is not something you talk about openly, publicly, and
Right.
then we have all the taboos around it. So I believe
Right.
that's why. And I think most pastors probably don't know how to properly articulate it or communicate it to the congregation, so they don't bother with it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yep. Anyone else? Well, in your experience in the church, why why is it difficult, and why is it when we do it's so negative?
We have a comment in the chat,
say something?
which is because of our view of sex, not realizing it's God's design for married couples.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. That's right. Someone else is going to say something.
Yes, please.
Yes. Go ahead.
Because we think the church is holy, and we don't think sex is holy. Both things should not be discussed in public.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some kind of spiritual feel about sex.
Yeah.
And most pastors would not know how to present it in church.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And that's part of it as well. All of those responses are part of it. Anyone else? I'll talk to all of those responses in a minute here. Anyone else?
We have another comment in the chat.
Okay.
Too much compromising and chances. We don't want to hear what to do and not to do because we will have sacrificed ourselves, our own feelings.
Right. Okay. Yes. Good. Good. And yes. And so let's just talk a little. And if anyone wants to comment, they could comment after. But let's just kind of talk about what some of the things been said. The church does not know how to talk about it. The church made sex a dirty thing. It separated it from what it is to be holy, and so we took our cue. So, just think about it. In church, you're single, all it's telling you is don't have sex, sex is bad, your sex outside of marriage is a sin, so you keep away from sex, and all they're trying to teach you is how not to become sexual because you're single, and once you get married, you hear nothing again. Okay? Nobody talks about sex again to you. All they're concerned about is that you don't have sex because it's a sin outside of marriage. Yeah, that's true. But all you're telling me is what I shouldn't do, but you're not telling me what I should do. And the church separated these two to the extent that the world now came up with a definition of what sex is: an emotional, physical, feel-good experience. And so I could like you no more, and I don't need to have sex with you anymore. I could move on and be with somebody else, and just to feel good. And so the spiritual connection, the sister just said there, the deep spiritual connection, which I'll talk about 2 Saturdays from now. A lot of people don't understand it. They're afraid to make the connection to it, so they stay away from it. And a lot of people in the church struggling with their own sexuality, so they can't talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it because they don't even understand it for themselves, where they are in the journey and in the struggle. And to talk about it publicly, and to talk about sex and how it is should be honored by God, and the healthy stuff, and what makes it good, and what contributes to it not being good in the context of marriage. We don't talk about those things. And so we go to a seminar, we go to something on a Saturday, and this kind of conversation we're having here, really your best audience is a Sunday morning for people to understand God's way of how he designed sex to be experienced in the context of the church. And so we have to work together to help the church change its view. And I think this is what this platform is doing, from this very negative, secretive, don't talk about, almost don't mix with holiness experiences, to say, hey, it's part of the journey of who we are. We talk about anger, we talk about lust, we talk about money, we talk about time, excuse me, we talk about a whole lot of different things, but we don't know how to talk about sex. And so hopefully you will get some information to help you to better understand, but also to start a conversation as well in terms of healthy sexuality. We want to change this narrative of it being something negative and we don't talk about. Excuse me. Okay. So moving on, if we have no more comments, what we'll look at today is the 5 essentials for healthy sexuality and safe sex. And when I say safe sex, I don't mean with condom or without condom. You will see what I mean by that, safe sex, when we get to the end. But we want to look at the 5 essential of healthy sexuality. Okay, so here we go. The first one is nurturing. This is big. This is huge, and we'll spend a lot more time here probably than any of the others. When we're talking about nurturing, then what we're talking about is the ability and willingness to take care of ourselves and to accept care and kindness from others. This is the absolute foundation upon which we're claiming and creating a healthy sexuality rests. What this is saying is, sex is such a receiving and a giving thing, so selfless and so vulnerable, that if you don't understand nurturing and how to receive nurturing, how to nurture yourself, then sex is difficult for you to really be able to have healthy sex. Okay, so it's foundational, as you will see. It's about, and a lot of us, we didn't experience nurturing growing up. You know, and when I say nurturing, why some people struggle with nurturing, it's what I'm talking about. It is people's like whose parents emotionally neglected them. Maybe they were struggling, maybe the parents were struggling with substance abuse or bereavement or other issues that kept them preoccupied with themselves. Maybe they fought in front of the kids. Maybe they expected nothing short of perfection. They're always telling you, do better, you know, you could do better than this. You never heard a good comment. You never heard. I've worked with so many people who would adults, you know, in their 40s and 50s, and they would start crying when they think about they could never get the approval of their mom or their dad, and they try so hard, and they try, you know. So when we don't get nurturing, when we don't get received and accepted, then for us it is a very difficult thing to be able to allow people to do it to us and even to take care of ourselves. So maybe your parents relied on the kids to care for them and place their own needs ahead of their kids. So when I'm talking about this whole thing about nurturing, then what we're talking about is back in that that early stage, you know, that 0 to 7 years growing up stage. If you were not held and hugged and appreciated and taken care of when you cried, someone attend to you, tell you to be okay, you know, helped you, rather than in my case, when I was, you know, a kid, 6, 7 years old, when I cried, you know what I would hear? What are you crying for? Do you want you want me to give you something to cry for? So my emotions were shut down because I wasn't allowed to feel hurt, and you know, so I had to toughen up because I wasn't nurtured. I wasn't allowed to feel that people really cared about me. So the end result of that is when you grow up in the kind of environment described here, then you end up not being able to take care of yourself because you were never taught the importance of caring for yourself. See? So we end up having difficulty nurturing ourselves. And if we have difficulty nurturing ourselves or allowing others to do so for us, we'll also have difficulty with sex. Because like I said, denying nurturing, we're also denying our sexuality. Healthy sexuality is, by definition, nurturing for both of us, for the both partners, okay? So this thing about nurturing then has to do with, do you care enough about you to take care of you without feeling guilty that you're taking care of you and you know, you're told you're selfish when you try to take care of you? Or are you able to allow people to take care of you without thinking you owe them something? Okay. When we struggle with nurturing, we struggle to receive it because we don't know how to take care of ourselves. Healthy sex then is possible only when we are well disposed to doing good things for ourselves and to let others do good things for us as well. So what most affects sexuality is the inability to accept, care, and nurture. And that inability is learned, as I just described. You won't experience it growing up. You don't know how to receive it. A lot of us don't know how to take care of ourselves. We struggle to you know, this little exercise I do, I tell people, I say, take a piece of paper and write down your top 5 priorities in life. What are the top 5 things that matters to you, that drives your life, that you can, and when you can identify your top 5 priority, then you are able to better manage your time, your resources, because you know you can look at if what I'm doing here contributing to my priorities or not. But usually when I ask them to write their top 5 priorities, a lot of times they're not in there. They're not in the top 5. They say God and family and job and ministry and, you know, and they're not in the top 5. And usually I would say, well, so where are you? You know, but because they weren't taught how to nurture themselves and care for themselves, they don't see themselves as a priority. Everybody else and everything else become a priority. And so I would say, can I rearrange your priority? You know, and I says, everybody has God as number one. God, you know, I says, okay, but what does that mean then? You know, if God is number one, it means what? It means everything that I am about, everything about my life, every area of my life, everything about who I am as an individual is influenced by, directed by, impacted by God and what he wants for me. My time, my money, my relationships, my resources, my waking up, my laying down, everything about me, because God is everything to me. And we know those songs, you know, he's everything to me. That's what that means. But the next priority ought to be you. And this is where we have the challenge. You ought to be your next priority, because you ought to take care of yourself. You ought to take care of yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, all the ways that you are a person. You ought to make sure that you are taken care of. And this is one of the reasons we have struggle in marriage, and you know, and people get we have adultery, or someone get connected to someone, they start drawing closer with someone. When you neglect to have your needs met and in a proper way, then you're going to get distracted, and the enemy is going to present opportunities where that need is going to be met in unhealthy ways. But when you neglect yourself, then you make yourself vulnerable to what the enemy is going to put before you. But when you make yourself number two on the priority list, here's what happens. The people that you serve get the best of you. Your spouse get the best of you. Your children gets the best of you. Your boss gets the best of you. Your church gets, because you are making sure you are in the best space. But we neglect ourselves, a lot of, especially in the church, a lot of leaders, they neglect their physical well-being, their emotional well-being, and they think, I have to be here for sister so-and-so, I have to be here, I got to be here, and if they don't go here, this is not going to happen. And so they have no break, they don't care for themselves, they don't eat well, they don't rest well, they don't take proper vacations, they don't calm themselves down, and so they end up with diabetes and all kind of physical ailments and heart problems and overweight, and they're struggling because they are not a priority in the priorities. That's what nurturing is about. And if you're not in a good place physically, emotionally, spiritually, you can't be in a good place sexually. You just can't, because it's the whole you. And so emotional unhealth, physical unhealth, you know, relationship unhealth, all of those things impact. So you can't say, you know, I'm having great sex, but I'm mad. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah, I'm having great sex, but you know, my body don't feel good. You know, and you have to nurture yourself for your sex to be healthy. If we're thinking of sex as it's meant to be nurturing, then you got to be able to be in a place where you can be nurtured. So the fundamental building block of healthy sexuality is the ability to be nurtured, to feel comfortable with being nurtured, to give ourselves over to being nurtured. If you can't do this, it will never be possible as an adult to have healthy sex. So I want to give you some guidelines here, but any questions from what I'm talking about nurturing?
No questions in the chat. Rev, you can move ahead.
No, can I ask a question quickly?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just
Sure.
want to make sure I understand you correctly, Rev. So for those, sorry, when you gave your example, I thought, okay, I understand it fully now, because I was about to ask, and then I thought, I think I understand now. So basically, when we would have been raised as children and your emotions were not paid attention to, as far as I'm concerned, and it was a lack of ignorance.
Right.
That means that there would have been a need for that kind of attention, and because it wasn't there, it's almost possible that we don't know how to do it very well. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So we didn't feel validated emotionally. So we don't feel that we could allow ourselves to be validated now. because, you know, we didn't experience it. So yes, you understood that, right? Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Okay. So self-care is not a luxury. Indeed not. It allows us to show up in this tumultuous world at the best version of ourselves. Okay. So this nurturing thing is about taking care of yourself. And when you could take care of yourself, you could be the best you. And I think a lot of us live below what God wants us to be, the version that he wants from us, because we neglect ourselves. And then we don't strive in the way God designed us to strive, because we give up on ourselves for the benefit of others. And when we come to self-acceptance, we'll talk a little more about that. But I just wanted to put this to say to you, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. If you're going to show up with your best version, you got to take care of yourself. Okay. So here are some ways I want to suggest to you when I'm talking about self-care, nurturing, what I'm talking about. Okay. So 1, nurturing yourself starts with identifying your needs. Okay. And even right now, just reflect on your deepest yearning and longings. Think about where you're feeling empty. What you need emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. This is what we're talking about when I'm talking about self-nurturing. Okay. Some of us haven't relaxed in a long time. We don't know how to laugh anymore. You know, we just always on the treadmill of life, trying to meet everybody's needs. And, you know, we're not eating healthy. We don't, last time we had a good night's sleep, wake up in the morning feeling rested. Or when last time we had a relaxing, restful vacation. When you know, I was telling a friend of mine, he and his wife took off on Wednesday for a few days break, and he's a very busy guy, missionary like myself, and he's responsible for a lot of things. And I said to him as he was leaving, I said, turn off your phone. You're not a first responder. You know, turn it off. When you get back, it'll be fine. But some of us make ourselves feel as though if we're not doing it, if we're not in everything, it's not going to happen. And so look at this question there. What is your deepest yearning? What is the thing that, you know, that's what we're talking about. And doing something with meeting those needs in a healthy way. And self-care is not selfish. Okay. Selfish is when I do things at your expense. It's all about me. That's selfish. Self-care is I do things so you can get the best of me. And so my self-care is so that my wife and my daughter and this job I have here and the people I interact with, they can get the best of me. I can show up in my best version. Most days I do. There are days when I don't, and I say, I can embrace the day when I'm saying, you know, today's not a great day. But they know me so well that they know that if I say it's not a good day for me, they get that, because I bring my best version every day, because I feel I owe them that, at least. The least I owe them. And more than that, that is my worship to God. My best self is my greatest worship to God, because then I'm saying, God, I honor what you have blessed me with, this body, these gifts, and I want to use it and care for it in such a way that you'll be honored and glorified. So your self-care is your worship back to God. Take control of your life. We are never going to be in control of whether or not someone else loves us, but we do have control over whether or not we love ourselves. I want you to hear that. I want you to see that. I want you to take that in. You don't treat yourself badly because other people treat you badly. I often say to people, when people treat you badly, it's because you invite them to, you allow them to. If you show respect for yourself, if you show nurturing and caring for yourself, if someone is yelling at me and I'm saying, I'm not going to stand there and take that. When you could lower your voice and talk to me properly, we have a conversation, even on the phone. You know, I worked in a call center when I was living in England, and on that floor, you know, 125 agents on the phone all the time. But whenever they had an angry customer, they would call me to talk to the customer. And I will start off with a customer. I'll say, we'll have this conversation, but if you raise your voice at me or swear at me, I'll hang up this phone on you. And I've done it. I hung up the phone when she swore at me, but then he has to call back. But it's a different person calling back now because I just set a boundary, because I have to take responsibility for me. So self-nurturing means that I gotta love me enough to say, you're not gonna speak to me like that. You're not gonna treat, I wouldn't stay here and take that. You know, we could have this conversation. I'm not afraid to talk about anything, but these are the boundaries, you know. And that's what self-care says, you know. I have to look out for me so I could be healthy, so the people around me, and more importantly, God, can be glorified with me being the best version of me. Take responsibility for your life. You have the power to provide for yourself. Use your incredible power. Don't blame your spouse. Don't blame your parents. Don't blame your boss. You know, your situation could be as difficult as it possibly can, but you have the power to look out for you, you know, to make sure that you are still taking care of you. A lot of times, I talk to married couples and engaged and dating couples on the call. This is just a heads up. I talk to married couples where one spouse is not being responsible, even probably having, you know, had an affair or something happening outside, you know, and this one spouse now is neglecting themselves because of the bad behavior of the other spouse. Now just think about that. They're not eating and they're not sleeping and they're not caring for themselves, you know, and because, and I'm saying, so now what you have done is, as painful as this is, you have removed care for yourself, you have removed what God wants for you, and now you have allowed this person now to define your life by their bad choices. So it's important to understand self-care means that even if my spouse decides to do the most craziest thing, I don't abandon me and my well-being in response to that. I have to take responsibility for me. And so usually I'll say to them, and usually the case is that they're not eating properly, they're not sleeping, that, you know, I says, you can't neglect yourself in response to your spouse's poor choice or your spouse's inaction. You have to be responsible for your nurturing and your self-care. Okay? Get a couple more here for you. Allow others to help you. This is huge. If we weren't nurtured properly, as we were talking about earlier, then we have difficulty allowing. For years, I struggled with allowing people to help me. You know, and whenever someone helped me, I thought I owed them something, because I was never taught just to receive nurturing without thinking I owe anything. You know, if I had parents and people around me when I was a child growing up, you know, and they just took care of me and they didn't make me feel I owe them something because they took care of me, you know. And one of the most difficult thing I hear is when parents tell children, you know, what I've done for you, you know, what I've done for you, and this is what I get in return. You didn't raise them for you. You brought them into the world, and that's your responsibility to take care of them. But to put a guilt trip on them, you know, all the sacrifice I made for you, and then they say, well, I didn't ask you to. But what I'm saying is, when you're not nurtured, you don't know how to allow people to nurture you. So allow others to help you. And when they do something for you, don't feel guilty. Don't think you owe them something. You have to give them something in return. Learn to take things in, again, not selfishly, but in appreciation that people want to help you. I would say that to people very often, if I'm in a group and we're in that group for any long period of time, like a Sunday school class that my wife and I taught back in the US for 14 years, I said to that group, I said, we can't know your need unless you let us know what your needs are. Okay? And that is true with our personal care as well. Allow others to help you. And finally, learn to ask for help and to receive it. Okay? A lot of us don't even, we so do not take care of ourselves that we need something, we need some help, but we don't know how to ask for it. Because we were not nurtured, we tell ourselves it's an inconvenience to ask others for help. So this is what I say to people. Having been on that journey, I say to people, that I'm working with and I'm trying to help, and I could realize that they weren't nurtured. So I usually say to them, you reach out to me when you need some help. You don't decide if I am busy. Let me tell you if I am busy. So you don't decide for me. And that's what people who haven't been nurtured and experienced nurturing, they always think people are too busy to help them. So they just make that assumption and they never reach out. Okay. So these are just 5 things I laid out there to kind of encourage you to think about how to be self-nurturing and taking care of yourself. So any questions there?
No questions in the chat. No mics have been unmuted, so we can move ahead.
Okay, good. All right. So this slide here is for you. Just remember this. Be kind, be patient, be generous, be accepting. Be all of these things to yourself. Because we could be these things to other people, but because we don't know how to do self-nurturing, we're not kind to ourselves, we're not patient, we get mad at ourselves. We find it hard to do things for ourselves, to buy things for ourselves, to treat ourselves well. We can't be generous to ourselves with time and how we care for ourselves and and how we treat ourselves. We think it's a waste of money to go and take care of our hair or go to a spa or do something nice for yourself. Go in a coffee shop and just sit by yourself. No one, just sit by yourself and relax and do something. Take a drive. Be generous to yourself and be accepting. Be accepting. You make a mistake, don't call yourself names. You're stupid, you're dumb. You always make the same mistake. What's wrong with you? Learn to be accepting of who you are and be kind to yourself. And accepting, I said to people very often, self-nurturing starts with first accepting who you are. When you could accept who you are, then you could begin to nurture yourself. But be kind, be patient, be generous, and be accepting. Be all of these things to yourself. That's where it all begins. Okay. All right. So there are no questions from self-nurturing. We're gonna switch topics. So we're talking about 5 things, and this is the first of the 5. This is about self-nurturing ourselves. Okay. So any questions on nurturing before I move? Unmute your mic or put it in the chat, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I do not have a question, but I just need to say I really thank you for allowing the Holy Spirit to use you that way, because indeed that I was at that point at one time in my life where I did not take care of myself. I took care of everybody else, husband, children, mother, siblings, everybody. And I used to neglect myself until 2 years ago. The Lord woke me up with that word in my spirit, Liat. Lord, I'm available to you. And he showed me, he directed me to go to Barbados on a trip and take care of me for 10 days.
There you go.
And since then, I came back a different person. I know how to balance. I know when to take care of me, when to give myself some time, when to give family time and everybody else time. So thank you so much for reminding me it's not selfish to take care of myself.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I really appreciate that testimony. That's good. Yeah. Anyone else before we go?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Rav, I just want to thank you as well for sharing, because I realize in nurturing yourself, that also helps you to take better care of who you are, who God has called you to be. And then in turn, you're able to take care of other persons. So you have to look at taking care of your temple. Also, I was glad when you really went deep down and broke it all down for me and helped me to understand that everything that you do, it also affects how you take care of yourself. So like it doesn't matter how you grew up, you have the choice to make the decision to nurture yourself and change how you view certain things, especially looking at sex and knowing God's intention for it, and going forward, look at it as something beautiful, something that God cherishes for you and you're supposed to enjoy. So thank you for that.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, and that's important, you know, and that's the hope of what we do on this platform, is to give people to get this different perspective and a healthy perspective as we're talking today. So good, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Rev,
My
we have a
brother.
comment in the chat.
Okay.
The person says the church has taught us to put ourselves last.
Yes, that is such bad theology, you know, and I grew up in that theology as well. But here's a simple correction to that theology. Jesus said to love your neighbor as what? Yourself. So Jesus already says you have to love yourself first. Okay. And it's not about being selfish. It's about, I could really love people when I understand what it is to be loved, and to love me and to care for me. Then I care for you. And let me make this distinction before the brother come on who wanted to make a comment there. We a lot of times do things for people and we think we're doing it for them because we love them. But here's the distinction. When I love me, when I take care of me, when I feel good about life and I'm at my best self, I could do the most menial thing. I could do the most, difficult thing. I could help people because I love them, because I love who I am. And so I'm giving out of that love of who I am, and I will do it. And if they never tell me thank you, I am fine with that, because I did it out of my love, and I enjoy doing it. But when I don't take care of myself, when I don't nurture myself, then how I end up doing it is I end up doing it with the expectation that they will love me for having done it. And when I don't get the response, then I say, oh, well, forget about you. I'm going to try to help the other person. So we put the need to love us out there. And then we have all these bad relationships and carrying all this resentment because I'm helping people at doing this and they don't appreciate what I'm doing, because we're looking for them to approve of us and to tell us they love us. But when we start for the love from inside, and that's what Jesus did in John chapter 13, before he washed the disciples' feet. Read that chapter. At the beginning of the chapter, it says, Jesus knew where he came from. He knew where he was going. He knew he was going to return into the Father. That's what it says before. The verse after that says, then he removed his coat, picked up the towel and the basin and washed their feet. It tells us that Jesus did that because out of who he was, not what he was expecting to get in return for having done it. So there's a difference we need to understand. I do what I do because I am at my best, and I do it out of the love that I know for me and that God has loved me and how I feel about me. I'll do anything. And if you never tell me thank you, I am fine, because I did not do it with that in mind. If you tell me thank you, I'll appreciate it. What I'm saying is, if you don't say thank you, that's not my motivation. So that's not going to stop me from doing it again. But if I don't love myself and you don't say thank you, then my motivation says, I'm doing it for you again. I'll try to find somebody else. So I just want to make that little distinction there. The great impact self-care has when we can love ourselves, that's how we can give ourselves so fully to the ministry. Okay, my brother, go ahead. Comment.
My brother, how are you?
I am well. I am well.
I hope you recognize the voice.
Oh yes.
My concern, or my concern is, how about the extreme? You mentioned, you dealt with a part of it a while ago, the other extreme, because sometimes as human beings, we go to the extreme. Yes. All right. So we're doing the self-help or self-care, sorry. Can you mention some dangers in that, in the extremes of it? Okay. Yeah, sure. So, and that's what I said earlier, the Valin, about self-care and selfishness. Okay. The extreme is then it's not self-care, but it's now selfishness. So the extreme is where it's all about me. So I take care of me, I make sure I'm okay, but I'm not giving back to anybody. I don't want anybody inconvenient my time. I don't want anybody to I'll show up when I want, because it's I'll only give 2 hours here because I need to take care of me over here. And so now I become this person where the life now, everything is around me and how it could make sure that I am okay, and I treat everybody in such a way that they have to know, I'm not available here, and so I make no sacrifice. I am not going to experience any discomfort. I'm not going to put myself out because it's all about me. That is selfish, because now I've gone to the extreme. Self-care say, I take care of me so I can make myself the best for you. So I need to do things, I need to help. I plan my life so I can give, I can be available, I can make a difference. But if it's all about I'm okay and I don't want to be bothered, and that's the selfish, that's the other extreme, Rev, where I become selfish now. It's not about self-care. It's just, and that's what the Bible guides us against. And Paul says, don't think too highly of yourself. So he's saying again, you need to think about yourself, but don't think too highly. And don't think too highly means you don't use other people so that you can benefit from it all. I hope I answered your question, but that's the extreme.
Yeah. But what I find is that the extremes seem to be very, very popular among a certain set of people, and it seemed like the way to go. But
Yeah.
I understand. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I hope that people get, that it's a popular thing now, especially, I talked a little more back in the States than over here lately. But when I was in the States, a lot of the younger pastors, that's the thing now, I got to protect my family, and I got to protect this, and I got, and now it become almost, and they get called to, a church call them, and they start with, well, I need to figure out, how this is going to benefit my family. And I say, hold up. When it comes to your call, is that you trust God or you don't? You can't start with, the package and all of that. But again, I'm saying we have to understand self-care is not selfishness. I want to be my best, like Jesus, so I could wash their feet and not expect anything in return, but to say, I'm just doing what needs to be done. And I hope you learn from me that we could do what needs to be done because we know who we are. Okay.
One more question, Rev.
Okay, go ahead.
What if you've made attempts to heal yourself and take care of yourself, but it seems not to be enough?
Okay. Well, the question at the end of the question seems not to be enough says that I am not quite sure that you got the help that you needed in order for you to be in a healthy space. Because if you get the help you need to be in a healthy space, and a lot of that has to do with dealing with some of the nurturing issues and all of that, it will be enough in that you will come to that place where you can take care of you. But if it's not enough, it means, I will say, there are still issues that needs to be dealt with, that you can be free, that you can be able to be in a healthy space. So that will be my response to that. It's not enough because there's still
keep money. Oh my God, I'm getting a little minute.
So yeah. Okay. So that would be my response to that. There are unresolved issues still if it's not enough.
Okay, Rev,
right.
One final question before you move ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Why do people feel guilty when they take time for themselves?
Yes. And that's some of that bad theology that we tell people that if you're a Christian, you everything for God, and so you give, and that's some bad theology they taught us. And I'm trying to say to people now, your well-being is your worship to God. Okay. And if you hear anything I say today, and this is what I'm saying, to neglect you is to show disregard and disrespect for what God has created you. God created you in his image. God took his time to uniquely create you. And now you show up with this life and you neglect that. It's like someone gives you an expensive gift and you just take it and throw it aside, or and you see it on the floor and you just kick it to the side with no appreciation for what that gift really means. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. God dwells in you. And you can't neglect you. And that's a bad theology. You can't neglect you and say that God is honored. It is our responsibility to be the best we can. A lot of us end up with physical issues because of self-neglect. And I say, God didn't call us to neglect ourselves and say we are serving him. That is not what God called us to do. God called us to be the best version of ourselves as we serve him. So that's my answer to that. That's just bad theology. And I hope that you're hearing me today. Stop feeling badly about taking care of yourself and start taking care of yourself. Okay. Let's move on now. So that's the first one, nurturing. If you can't nurture yourself and you can't receive nurturing from others, your sexuality is not going to be healthy. You're going to struggle sexually because sex is nurturing. And that means this experience of sex, of giving yourself and being able to receive, everything that the sexual experience brings and to give back in return for the person, your spouse, that can't be fulfilling and healthy if you don't know how to be nurturing and to receive nurture. Okay. So the next one then, that was self-nurturing. The next one, moving on, is sensuality. When you hear that word, you see that word is sensuality. What, just gonna talk to me, what comes to mind for you?
Our feelings,
Mute your mic.
our emotions.
Go ahead, say that again.
Our feelings and our emotions.
Okay, good. Our feelings and our emotions. Yep. Okay.
Being very aware of everything around you. So the taste, the smell, the touch, the seeing, the hearing, all 5 senses, very, very pricked and ready and taking in everything.
Okay, good. That's very good.
The sense of being desired, I guess.
Okay. All right. Yep. All those are good answers. Okay. So I want to do a little exercise with you. So I hope that most of you in a place where you can just for 1 minute, it's just going to be 1 minute. Here's what I want you to do. I'd like you to just get comfortable, sit where you could be attention and focus, get yourself comfortable. And for 1 minute, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. And I want you to close your eyes and to just focus on your breathing, okay? And here's what I want you to do. I want you to count, and you count 1 when you inhale and exhale, that's 1, okay? Inhale, exhale, that's 2. Just your normal breathing, don't breathe deeply or anything, just your normal breathing. So for 1 minute, I'm gonna set my thing, and I want you to count how many breaths you can take in a minute. And a breath is a complete inhale, exhale, okay? So I'm gonna start my timer, and when I start my timer, I want you to just close your eyes and focus on your breath. Focus on the oxygen coming through your nostril, feeling it into your nostril and feeling you breathing it out, okay? I want you to pay attention, close attention for that 1 minute and count those breaths and see how many you get, okay? So ready, go. Okay. All right. So share. Give me some numbers. Just open your mic and give me some numbers.
18.
Okay.
13.
17, 13. Okay.
15. 17.
Okay. Okay.
17.
Okay. Good.
17.
Right. 17. Good. Okay. Right.
9.
So 9. Okay. So most of you are around the average. So now here's the thing. Okay. What did you notice when you did that? Did you notice anything different?
Yes, I noticed that my body was more relaxed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyone else? What did you notice?
Focusing.
Yes.
That's more relaxed.
Bit more relaxed. Yes. Yes. Very good. Okay. So did you hear any different song? Did you pick up any different smell? Did you know, did anything feel different other than you're focusing, you're relaxed? Feel anything in your body? So
Silence.
There you go, silence. Okay. So here's what I tell people. That exercise I just did with you. So you know, a thermometer measures temperature. Okay. A thermostat sets the temperature. That exercise is a thermostat for your feelings. Okay. If you could practice, it does a number of things for you. One is it helps you to calm your, you know, like some have already said, it calms you. So you could be in the most emotionally, you know, stressful thing. If you could find just to stand somewhere, you know, just look off, whatever, and just count those breaths, just for the one, it calms you. Second thing, it helps you to focus because you were only focusing on one thing. All the other thoughts went out your head. We don't know how to do that well. Okay. So you learn to focus on the one thing. You learn to calm your emotions. So that's your you know, your thermostat for, and the longer you can do it. And I would sit in the morning and I would spend 10 minutes completely just quiet, paying attention to my breathing. And because the third thing that does for you, it rests your mind. Because someone said, you know, relax it. Your body relaxes and your mind. And that's the only way you can rest your mind, to focus on one thing. Even when you're asleep, your mind is at work. And so that exercise, it helps you to really be able to calm your emotions, to relax your body, to rest your mind, and to focus. Okay. But that's that. So I just wanted to share that with you, of what you discovered just by doing that. So talking about the senses, then this is what we're talking about, the sense. You're able to feel things. Okay. Smell things, hear things. So sensuality and sexuality, and you know, I ask you what you thought. So let me just give you some definition here, okay? Sexual refers to what we do sexually, including our behaviors, our thoughts, feelings regarding sex, okay? So that's what I mean when it says sexuality. Sensual then refers to engaging the senses, sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch, as a way to experience pleasure and take in information from our environment. Okay. Now, for a lot of us, sensual just go to sexual. But someone said earlier when I asked the question about sensual, you know, talk about in just experiencing it as it's defined there. Allowing all of your body, all of your senses to be engaged in life. Okay. Heightening your sensuality is going to make for healthy sexuality. Okay. So the main difference is that sensual can be a form of pleasure without being connected to a sexual turn-on or erotic state. Okay, that's the big thing. And so I want you to catch that. You can be sensual, but not sexual. Okay? Sensual has no goals, where sexual often refers to the stages of sexual responsiveness. Okay? And that starts from from being aroused to being plateaued to orgasm to cooling to the calming down after the orgasm. But when it comes to sensual, it has no goals. Okay. But sexual responsiveness, which can feel more biological and goal oriented, that is, the genital response to stimulation, orgasm, and all of that. When it comes to the sensual, you can be sensual, but not sexual. You can, I think of it this way. You can enjoy taking a walk on the beach and taking in the breeze and just the smell of the ocean and and all how wonderful all that feels, and just the breeze on your skin, early morning as the sun rises and you're on the beach and you could feel that, or you could listen to the waves just crashing, whether it's loudly because it's high tide or it's gently because it's low tide. That's developing your sensuality. Or eating some food that you just love the taste. A lot of us eat and we don't even taste what we eat, but it's just eat and the taste of what you're enjoying, and just or the sight, the beauty. I love the outdoors. I love the oceans. I love good food. I love to cook. I love the kitchen. So I just love those experiences, and it's just so wonderful. Song, sight, smell, taste, smelling they say smell the roses, So while sexuality comes from the physical desire for sex, sensuality comes from the physical, emotional, spiritual desire for pleasure in everything. Okay? And that's what I mean by sensuality. It's a broader experience of taking in life rather than just it being about sex. And the more heightened our sensuality, the healthier the sex, because you become more open to the experience because you want to experience it fully because your sensuality is alive. So a touch, because you're so sensual and your body is so aware of touch and all of that, just a touch will heighten your, for sexual purposes, will heighten that sexual need, that turn on because of your or where you are in terms of your sensuality. Okay, questions?
So in a nutshell, Rev, you're saying that
yes,
it is about experience the whole pleasure of life without it having to be sexual at all.
Amen, sister. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
See? Yeah, go ahead. Yes. So that's the point. Okay. That can I be so sensual and enjoy life without it becoming sexual? I remember I said at the beginning of this conversation, humans are the only of God creation that could be sexual whenever they want. Okay. So yes, that's what I'm saying. To learn to let your senses let you enjoy life. We say smell the roses. Literally, that's what we mean. Can you tell the difference of smell and just enjoy? That smells good, or just develop that heightened sense of sensuality.
So
let's just raise. Go ahead.
So we have to retrain ourselves then, because
yes,
because our first thought is sex, and this is, so it means that we really have a lot of retraining to do. That's why it's coming over to me now.
Yes, that's exactly, and also what I'm saying, Maureen, is that and just think with me here, when you can enjoy the taste of something, the pleasure you feel from enjoying eating something, and not I shouldn't be eating this, or but
to slow it down and taste it and just have the pleasure of what that feels like, you know, or the pleasure of an embrace, you know, just feel a touch that, not a hug that is not sexual, it's just that, just to be hugged, you know, or to appreciate good smell. Then what your body and your whole, you know, you're just so aware and you're so into life and experiencing life that when it comes to the sex, then all of you is just so ready and open and it's taking in everything, because your sensuality is heightened by just everyday living and developing those senses that God has blessed you with.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, because I know when like a favorite food, you have it, you really take the time to do it. So it's really about taking the time to become very sensual and just subtract the sex from it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So I need to, can I say something, please, Reverend?
Sure.
Because for me, I'll be honest, I struggle with even as you're talking about the sexual thing, the actual sex without the other, like you're saying, because I was trying to understand myself, how come I am married, how come I am not there, you know, enjoying that the way that I should be. And I'm saying, okay, why I'm not wanna, you know, be there, you know, wanna do this there regular. But I think by you saying that, it kind of like open my mind that, because I've been searching for more. I say there gotta be something that is missing. So you're saying then that because we're not using our senses to enjoy, I'm still trying to wrap my hand around it. I'm getting it. But I'm still trying to understand it so that I can understand it for myself and apply it.
Okay, good. And this so this not being there is part of it. The sensual thing we're talking about. And so what we're saying, what I'm saying to you is, when your senses are heightened, like I said, the touch, so then the touch is a different touch. It's like a welcome touch, just, you know, now, and like I said, like we said earlier, I'm sensual but not sexual. So when I'm sensual for sexual, I'm intentional about that. Okay. And then my body is receptive to the touch. My emotions is ready for it, you know. I'm in my spiritual, I'm there, I'm fully there. So the pleasure is heightened because I am fully there. And like you said, not being there, you know, your mind takes you away because you're not feeling it fully in who you are. It becomes now a physical experience detached from you, emotionally detached from you, spiritually detached from you, in terms of what you're smelling, what you're sensing, all that's detached, and it's a physical experience. And so you check out, you know, and so you have to bring yourself back in, but it's developing that sensuality so that experience becomes something so desiring because your senses are engaged.
So just a question then, how do I get my senses engaged?
Okay, so it starts with developing your senses, like we were talking earlier about paying attention to taste and smell, slowing down, and, you know, feeling good about things because you're experiencing them. Okay, and I will say to you also that the sensuality is part of contributes to the checking out, but there could be other things that are also contributing to that. And probably we'll see a little later when I bring up another point here. But just learn to develop your senses, learn to pay attention to how things feel in your body, you know, the breeze or your clothes, so you're just aware, you know, developing more awareness, more of your senses of how things feel on your body, how paying attention to your emotions, you know, seeing things, developing your smell, your taste for things. And over time, as you walk patiently with that, you'll find that you're a lot more sensual about life and experiencing life, so that the sexual experience becomes engulfed in that, and it becomes more pleasurable and more nurturing and fulfilling.
Wow, and that is amazing.
Yeah. And that's what I meant when I said earlier that the world has
give us a sexuality that says it's physical and emotional. We have sex, we have an orgasm, feel good. I like you today, okay, the sex was good. I don't like you tomorrow, we're done. I'll watch pornography, I'll have somebody outside because sex ain't good. Because it's not sex. It's not sex as God designed it. And if we would engage all of that God has given us to make sex as pleasurable and as fulfilling as it is and as satisfying as it is, you would be, the two shall become one until death do us part. It will be that, because everything will be clicking as God designed it to click.
Amen. Thank you so much.
So true.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Totally understand now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So let me just some more quotes here. If everyday life, this is what I'm saying all the time, if everyday life we are not aware of what we are hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, and tasting, of what we are perceiving in the broadest sense of the word, we won't notice what we are perceiving during sex either. And that's what I'm saying, sister. You were talking earlier. This is the point. It doesn't just happen in the bed. It needs to be life happening out there. That's why I said sex doesn't start on the bed, in the bedroom. Sex starts with how wonderful you enjoy that food, how wonderful you feel the breeze blowing, or the type of clothes you have on, if it's something heavy or something light, and you could feel it in your body. And sex begins all with those things happening because your senses are open and ready, and you're perceiving the world through your senses. Then you will perceive what's happening in sex as well.
Amen. This is a great renewing of our mind.
Yes, that's exactly, yes. And so so you asked earlier about how we do this. There's no magic switch, to turning on our senses. It's just as none exists for nurturing, as we talked earlier. If we are not sensual in general, we will not suddenly sensual when we are sexual. Healthy sexuality grows out of the way our lives, minute by minute, hour by hour, we just develop that, okay? So when we incorporate nurturing and sensuality in our day-to-day lives, they naturally become part of our sexual lives. So you don't have to think about the sex. That's all I'm saying. Just try to be fully human as God designed you to be human, and your sex will be great because your sensuality is developing, you're self-nurturing, and you'll be doing your part for the sex. But we kind of separate that and we show up for the sex, and the sex is not good, and we can't figure out why, because we're not functioning well. We're not caring for ourselves. We're not developing the parts of our body that God gave us to make the sex great. We haven't even taught how to develop those areas in our lives. So the sex just becomes a physical exercise. Okay. So now let's go to the next topic. Once any more questions on sensuality or comments? Okay.
There was a hand raised earlier. Fidela Okafor, would you still like to ask your question? Okay, we can go ahead, Rev.
Okay, so we're going number 3, self-image. Ladies, I know this is huge for you, so I want you to stick with me in here. Okay, this is you see, for ladies usually self-image. For men, it's about duration. Men is about, and I could have sex for so long, For women, it's about how they perceive themselves. Okay, so let's talk a little about self-image and see how that plays into healthy sex. Likewise, for sex to feel good, we have to feel deserving and attractive and positive about ourselves. If our overall self-image is poor, it will necessarily affect the way sexual part of our lives. Problems with self-image, in fact, becomes more difficult and more complex when sexuality comes into play. So for a lot of people, this self-image thing,
can't turn on the light for us to have sex. It must be dark, because can't see my body, and very aware of your body, and so that the self-image thing now begins to play in the mind. Okay. And if you're not feeling good about your self-image, then you lay in the bed, then you're having sex, but you're thinking about your body and how you feel about your body, and you begin to struggle, and your mind, and are you performing it well? And so you check out. It just become this scary time where and that's part of the problem. We'll talk about it when we talk about emotional wounds and sexual addiction. So a lot of people become sexual anorexic because of the self-image, especially with women. Their self-image is so bad that they don't feel for sex, and they don't want to engage in sex because they measure themselves by how they feel about themselves, and they think, you have to be naked, exposed to be seen, and so no lights on, once in a while, very afraid and very self-conscious about their body. All of us develop sexual self-image that increasingly comes in focus as we grow into adults. And all of us struggle somewhat with our sexual self-image. So your sexual self-image, what you were told about sex when you're growing up, sex is dirty, or you touch your private part, you touch your vagina, your penis, you're slapped in your hand. Don't play with that. Don't touch that. How people don't talk about sex and all of that, and don't have sex and stay away from boys and what are that. So you've developed this very negative sex image about yourself. Okay. And then, you talk about your clothes, you're dressing like a slut, and what's wrong with you? And so now you have this image now that my body, and then it's bad. Boy, so you come into this marriage, those of you who are engaged and dating on this, you're getting some advanced information here, but you come into this marriage and you have all this dark, ugly, scary thing about sex. And then your husband, and he's taught, guys, they're to be macho, they can go for a long time, and and be ready to go. And so he's coming and he's ready to go to show his macho-ness, and you're just thinking, oh my word, so you get set up because of how, what you were taught. So you have this negative image, sexual self-image. And so you bring that into the marriage. And then, like I said, before marriage, all you hear is don't get involved in sex. Premarital sex is wrong and fornication is wrong. And that's all you hear. You get married, you don't hear about sex again. You got to figure it out while you struggle with your poor sexual self-image. Okay. So in forming our sexual self-image, many of us, men and women alike, put ourselves up against unrealistic, nearly mythological ideas of what is attractive, and when we fall short of the ideas, our conclusion about our sexuality are needless affected by it. So for the woman, my shape, my weight, that. So there's the extreme, right? Everything to look this perfect body, and so I got news for you, ladies. Some of those ladies you see with those perfect bodies out there, sex is a nightmare for them. And because the body is not what makes the sex. I hope you get in that today, at least. The body is not what makes the sex. But for the guys, the same thing, those guys that looks big and strong, and look like, they can have sex for 6 hours, don't be fooled. And so we get these cultural, mythological ideas of what the self-image ought to be for sex to be great. While self-nurturing, sensuality, those things are not in the picture. All we're thinking about is to be this way. And so when you fall short, you want to lose weight, so you want to look attractive, and you want to be, my husband would like me this way, or my boyfriend like me this way, or men would like me this way. And so you put your sexuality out there as how your body would be. And you begin to define your sexuality by your body. But I hope we're learning that is not
what this is about, and that's not where we're going with this, okay? But we get these ideas, and you grow up and you have these ideas, and you become adult and you have these ideas, and you have to find ways to change these way of thinking of yourself, okay? But here is the thing. Too often we expect others to be responsible for our sexual happiness, when instead we need to examine what we are doing and thinking. We are responsible for our sexual happiness. Let me say this again. It is not to be placed on anybody else. And like I said earlier, if your spouse is not wanting to have sex 5 days a week as you want to have sex, and you want to have sex 1 time a month, you are still responsible for your sexual happiness. You can't say, well, because my spouse don't want to have sex 5 days a week and only once a month, I start doing this or I start doing that. It is you. You're responsible. So some things you learn, some things you know, you have to do the work to unlearn those things. And you're on this platform because that's what you're doing. Learning the right things, understanding what is healthy, and not continue living with the things you were taught. And then sadly, we pass it on to the next generation because the generation previous to us passed it on to us. But the hope that this platform is helping you to see that God's intention for sex, it wasn't about, image, self-image, about my body, so we don't feel good about ourselves. And it's important for us to feel good about who we are, so that we are able to enjoy our sex and not judging ourselves and our image and our performance and our body, and recognizing that sex is a whole lot more than that. So it starts with us, with our past experiences, our self-image, and our expectations. What were you told about sex growing up? And some of us, who engage in sex, premarital sex, and probably we were told, you're not good in bed, and you can't last long, and you don't, and all the things, and you carry that self-image with you, and now you're in a marriage relationship, but that's coming back to you, or how some of us are molested sexually, and we were so told certain things. And so we believe those things about ourselves sexually, and these things now define us. So we have to go back and reprogram some of those negative things we are told about our self-image, our expectations, what is great sex, what is the perfect sexual experience, listen, when it comes to two people that is joined together under the covenant of marriage, the expectations has to be between those two people and what's for them, not bringing in all the outside stuff and say, and that's the problem. And this is one of the reasons that God is so adamant about sex being for marriage, because when you become sexual outside of marriage, all your sexual encounters makes up your experience. And so you bring that into your marriage. And now you bring that into your marriage, and you have certain expectations that your spouse come in there, and let's say your spouse didn't have all the sexual experience to bring anything into marriage, but just comes to build on whatever it is, and you place all these expectations, or you've both been involved sexually in different partners, and you come to get married together. There's a whole lot of issues to work through here. So God says sex outside of marriage, not because he was being mean. What he was saying is sex is really fully sex enjoyed without guilt, without remorse, without fear, is in the context of marriage. And you save yourself bringing all of those past experiences. Pornography does that to you. You watch all this pornographic stuff, get all these ideas about sex, these people who are acting, and they're made up, and they're made to make you think sex is this great. And then you come and you get married, and your poor spouse can't stand on the head and swing from the ceiling to have sex with you, and you do, what's wrong with your spouse? It's pornography. It's not real. So God gave us all these boundaries about sex, not because he's a killjoy. It's because he wanted us to know the real joy. If we will follow his guide for how we develop our sexual image, how of what makes great sex. Okay. Question then on the self-image. I know you have questions, so open your mic or put it in the chat. But let's talk about it.
Okay. When I look at self-image, you have to dig deep down in your intellect, your emotions, your thinking, your psyche. Okay, say from past hurts, you have been hurt in, what to say, relationship, family-wise, relationship, spouse-wise, whatever.
Right.
You are trying, there's a conflict going on in your soul. You've been counseled. You are, you know, it is a process. It's not something that is quickly, what to say, cemented. It is a
Right.
constant stage, as in like you get bruised, you get a cut. It have to go through the process, the underlayer, and then the surface.
Yes.
So I'm speaking for me.
Yep.
There's a war going on with me, and I know it's a spiritual war. You know, past hurts from family, relationships, whatever. You say you forgive, you're not holding on. But what if you have forgiven yourself, but you are still facing that conflict? I know you may be still bleeding inside, but hence, as I said, is a process. How do you go about that? Not to, there may be people in your circle who can sense or pick up, this is not you. I know you don't, what's going on? But hence it is a struggle. You're trying to get that stronghold in a man from inside you to let go and give it to God. But it's still a warring in there. Yet you may love people around you, but there's still that conflict in there. How do you go about that?
Yeah. So some of that is, and I do a lot, I work with a lot of people in that very context you're talking about. Okay. So one of the things that I have developed that I say to people when we start this conversation is you have to know where you end and other people begin. Okay. What I mean by that is, and this is my simple example of it. Let's say, you're at home and you wake up early in the morning and you have your devotions and you're sitting there and you have a song in your heart, and you're just enjoying the morning, enjoying your cup of tea or coffee, looking out the window. It's a Saturday morning, you can hear the birds, whatever, nice day. And then your spouse come downstairs. I had a rough night, whatever, and you can tell. And you say, good morning, darling, how are you? Oh, oh. So here's what happens. Normally what happens, that spouse's response takes your song away. Your day doesn't look as good anymore. You stop hearing the birds singing, and all of a sudden, you now have an attitude. So what has just happened is you have allowed your spouse to invade your space. So I begin by saying, you have to know where you end. You are in a space where you enjoy your song, your music, whatever, and your spouse come and they're upset. You say, are you okay? No, okay. So you just have to say, okay, when you're ready, we'll talk about it. But stay in your space. And this is not easy to do because it come automatic. We have to work intentionally not to do it. But you have to stay in your space so that you are responsible for you. In the same way with family conflict and all of that, the pain come back, the resentment come back, the anger come back, and we say we forgive, but why it's still there? Because we have not yet drawn that line to say, what they did, and I said earlier, they might have victimized me, but I am not a victim. So my decision is whether you apologize to me or not. My forgiveness of you is not because for you, it is for me. So I'm letting this go. Whether you ever tell me you're sorry or not, that has nothing to do with why I'm doing this. I need to be free. I need to be free so I could be me. And I had to draw that line and say, it might have been, and I could tell you about stories about being physically abused, sexually abused growing up. I had to let these people go and they never owned it. But that's okay, because I am free. So that's what you have to work towards in terms of that, it's you freeing yourself from them rather than they have anything to do with your freedom.
Yeah, thank you very much, because it gave me a little peace here, because I'm saying, although as much as I love the individuals, family, friends, whatever, I am asking myself, do I love myself enough? Although I'm forgiven, do I got introspect me, myself,
Yes.
I have set them free. So I thank you very, very much for giving me that clarity. Thanks very much.
Good. Okay, you're welcome. Yeah. All right. Any more questions on self-image?
We have a question in the chat.
Okay.
How do I help my spouse cope with self-image issues?
Okay. So the first thing is, it has to start with you. Okay. And again, this is like what I said earlier about the whole, knowing yourself. If you're in a good place with your self-image, then you can contribute to your spouse's self-image. If your spouse is for lack of so we could use, let's talk about the sexual thing. Let's say it's the woman who doesn't feel good about her body and is always complaining, all of that. You're trying to, so what your conversation has to be about. First, she has to see how you treat you and how you take care of you, and then your talk to her about, it's not when she says, I'm 5 pounds overweight and I'm tired of this, I'm tired of trying to eat, and can't eat well and whatever, I can't go my exercises, you don't join into that and say, you say things like, okay, so hon, how can I help you? What do you need me to do? Saying things like, you don't look fat, okay, don't go there, because that just sounds patronizing. Okay. You just want to be there to say, what can I do for you? And maybe, and do some things, start doing some things that you hear them talking about that will help them, that you just do it. Okay. Same thing for the guys, it's the same thing. Guys struggle with it as well. But when it comes to sex, guys is about endurance. So this guy, you're having sex, in 2 minutes, he comes and you just frustrated, and he's mad because and so what do? It's about talking this through and figuring out how can I help, how can we make this so you don't carry all this guilt. And so no two situations be the same, but all I'm saying is stop trying to correct their wrong statements because they feel it as patronizing, and start showing up as one who wants to provide support and help and come alongside. And sometimes just say nothing. Just say nothing. And that some guys, when the wife comes and say, how do I look in this dress, hon? It's like, if I do, I die. If I don't, I die. What do I say? But the point is, I don't comment about, I say to couples, don't comment, don't try to correct what they're saying, but come alongside and provide support to help them to feel nurtured and loved and cared for, to help them in that self-image space. Okay. All right. So let's go to number 4, how you define yourself. Okay. Now there is let me just talk a little differently here. So we about sexual self-image, and that's, remember to say, that's about your physique, how you think you look, and how you feel about yourself and your performance and all of that. And we are saying that we need to correct some of those wrong teachings about our self-image, but this is now your self-definition. How do you define who you are? Okay. It's important to have a healthy self-definition in order to make sex really, really good. Okay. So let me just walk you through this. When I talk about self-definition, I'm talking about, do you really know, you're comfortable with who you are? I know who I am. Okay. I know my likes, my dislikes, my strengths, my weaknesses. I know my values. I know what, so I am so comfortable with who I am. I know who I am. I don't change my tone depends on who's talking. I don't say things that people just want to hear. I could be me. I could unfold who I am and so I have a very good sense of self-confidence about who I am, because once I could do that, then that goes into the sexual experience, because then I show up for my sex, participating with such a confidence of who I am, that the sex is
is fulfilling and enriching, and because I know fully who I am. I understand who I am. We all have likes and dislikes, and that goes in. It also, we'll talk about it in the next one. But the likes and dislikes in the bedroom, what really turns you on, what turns you off, what makes it work, what you like more of, what we'll talk about that next. But your likes and dislikes in life in general, that. What about your strengths and your weaknesses? Embracing your weaknesses. Me, I am by nature, I am this kind of a moving person. What I do here, this is what I do. If you ask me to sit down and write a paper or write, I'm like, I can't do that. Okay. Writing is not one of my strengths, it's one of my weaknesses. But that being said, you have to find people who you could, and this is just a little bit of, those of you who have ever done anything with Gallup strengths, this is just a little bit of Gallup strength language here. What Gallup strengths tells you is know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Stop trying to get strength, to develop strength in your weaknesses. Get people to help you where you're weak and develop your strength to the point of excellence. Okay. What we tend to do is we neglect our strength. I can do that. And we want to get better in some place that, so I struggle to write because I know that's a challenge for me because of my dyslexia, because, not developing the ability to write because I didn't go to high school. So I struggle. So what I do, I wrote a blog for 5.5 years. Every week I put out a blog every Sunday night. But guess what I did? I wrote my ideas and my thoughts, and then I give it to my wife, who's an excellent writer. She edits it, and then I send it to the person who posts the blog for me, and she edits it again and puts it out there. So what people read, the final product, is well been looked at by people who are strong in my place of weakness. So know your strengths. Don't be afraid to embrace your weaknesses and get help, but don't try to say, so I could say, well, I better take some classes in writing to become a good writer. And in the meantime, I'm neglecting my strength to do what I can do well because I'm trying to develop something that I am weak at. But embrace it. So your self-definition, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. What are your values? We tell ourselves we're Christians and we have Christian values, but you know what? When I talk about emotional wounds, you will see in there, as much as we tell ourselves we are Christians and we do things in a certain way as Christians, when, as we say in the Caribbean, when push comes to squeeze, our values change so we can get what we want to do, what we want to do. But this self-definition says, I know what defines me. I know my values. I know what's unshakable about. I know what's uncompromising. I'm okay. Because when you know that, your values will say, you realize this person in the office is hitting on you, they're testing the waters. Whether it's this girl, who comes up to you, or this guy, your values, because you're so clearly defined, you have already said to yourself, my definition is, my defining value is, I am not going to go out with anybody of the opposite sex that, unknown to my spouse, that they know who it is, they know where I am, and they know why I'm doing it. That's your defining values. So you don't just, go with somebody and then tell your spouse whatever. So knowing, and not just an example, but knowing your values that clearly defines you gives you this healthy sense that makes the sexual experience really healthy. Without defined and clear boundaries, the needs, desires, problems, goals, and all that makes up the relationship flows together. So this is about in the relationship now. So if you don't have boundaries, like I said earlier, you don't speak to me like that, we're not going to have this conversation. I'm not going to do this. This is what we're going to agree on. When couples are not well defined, then everything mixes up in an unhealthy way. And I read a story just recently about a couple without boundaries. This older couple married for years. They're taking a walk on the beach evening, and it started to get, the sun was up, but then the sun was going down, so it was getting cooler as they walked the beach, you know. But because no boundaries, everything mixed up together, and this, you know, the wife just says to the husband, you know, honey, I'm getting cold. Would you please put on your coat? You know, it's that kind of thing, you know. You do for me what I want, because we don't know who really wants what. But with clearly defined boundaries, we could, like I said earlier, you know where you end, the other person begins. So the person comes and they're in a huff and a puff and they're angry or whatever. You don't let them cross that boundary. You can deal with it. So defining those is very important, because if you don't, then you have struggle in the relationship. So without self-definition, we have neither boundaries nor clear differentiation of who we are as individuals. We like chameleon, or we say in Trinidad, you like at 24 hours, you know, wherever you go, you look like them, because you have no boundaries, you have no self-definition, and that shows up in the bedroom. And guess what? Same thing, because you can't fully enjoy healthy sex, because, and so you're experiencing something during the sexual experience and you don't like it, but you're 24 hours, you know, you're a chameleon, you just fit wherever, you know. And so the sex is not exciting, it's not fulfilling, it's not, you know, it's like you want to get over this as quickly as you can, because your self-definition doesn't give you that clarity to say, you know, so we can talk about this and we can make this what we both want it to be: pleasurable and fulfilling and nurturing. That's what self-definition does. Help us to set boundaries, help us to be very clear on what works and what doesn't, what we like, what we don't like. And sometimes we're afraid to speak up because we think people wouldn't like us. Okay. And you learn that when you speak up, people appreciate you because they know you better and they know what to expect from you, and they know, you know, exactly what you want or what you don't want. Okay. So self-definition then also includes the ability and strength, the requisite self-respect to say no when a boundary is breached, to tell others that when we say something, we mean it. Our boundaries are clear. This is think about family. Think about, you know, when the two shall become one, and so you get married and you're talking about this marriage covenant and everything. So that you shall leave and cleave. And I say to couples, once you get married, this is the most important human relationship you have on earth with each other. You could have been as close to your mom as you possibly could. You could love mom's cooking as the best ever. And your wife doesn't know how to, you know, she doesn't even know how to boil an egg. The two shall become one. You better teach her how to cook. But you can't be going and eat by mom and coming home and don't want to eat the boiled egg that she didn't boil properly. The two shall become one. So in this self-definition, to be able to protect each other, to not sit there and listen to somebody, to a family member, talk in a negative way about your spouse, but because you have no boundaries, you know, and then you leave and you say, I don't know why uncle always say this about you, and I don't know why, you know. It's like, hold on. No, this is my wife. And be able to say, if we're going to come here to visit and this is how the conversation is going to be every time, maybe it's best we don't come. That's not disrespect, that's self-definition. When the boundaries are breached, you need to be able to say, no, this is not right. We're not going to accept this. This is how it needs to be. And if it can't be this way, then maybe, you know. So I'm talking here about things that happen so regularly in marriages, because there are no self-definition, there's no clarity in what we're going to put up with and what, you know, and to be able, so what we end up seeing is, and I was talking to one of my colleagues here, who there's a history in this family, two generations go back, where all of the husbands, you know, they either left or who show up don't engage, or they say they don't want to go and visit because there are no boundaries, you know. But I get to work with this colleague of mine, and I'm teaching them how to set boundaries. So, you know, when they get demands from the families to say, but this is what we want, so this is how we're going to do it. And if it's not going to work, that's okay. But this, because you're building your own home, and you can't not have boundaries, define boundaries with the self-respect. So you don't tolerate certain things, you don't allow certain things in your presence, and for each other, and you protect each other, and you make sure each other are taken care of. And just imagine, go with me here for it. Probably some of you who are married probably experience this. So you go to visit someone, and your spouse is attacked, or you're attacked, and then you go home. What kind of sex think you're going to have? None. Okay. And why? And it has nothing to do with the fact that you came to have sex, but it be to do with what happened with the visit, because you have no boundaries. Your self-respect is not there to say we're not going to tolerate this. So you come in the car and you're going home, and you're not happy now because you allow the people to treat you badly because you have no self-definition and no boundaries. So you end up being treated that way. And the end result is the sex is not healthy because we weren't able to set the boundaries and make them very, very clear. Okay. So, all right. Questions on the boundaries, self-definition. What you hear me saying, and what questions? Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say, because it's interesting that you said that, because sometimes we don't see the connection of that same self-definition that you're speaking about to relate to a sex life. So sometimes you find yourself not being able to have those sexual relations with your partner because of something that might had happened. And then they want to know where. So it's like people don't understand that one thing is connected with the next, as you was explaining it here, but you don't see that connection. So then when the person goes into this mode that, oh, no, I don't want to, you know, they start with this attitude, I don't want to do this, I can't do this. No, it's like, why are you like that? But you don't understand the connection between all those experiences you have that would have either degraded you, they would have insulted you, they would have done whatever. And then when it comes down for you to give yourself, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's good to see the connection here. And I was wondering, because I have 2 young daughters, and in terms of them being aware, I know sometimes you would say, like, you cannot do certain things. You cannot walk out naked in your bedroom. If somebody, you got to be covering yourself. I mean, you're within, maybe even with your sister, but still you had to be like covering yourself, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm looking and seeing, as I'm hearing you speaking, that does affect your sexuality as well.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And that's so important, you know, how we speak about it, how the message that we carry across there, you know. But yeah, the self-definition, and again, good sex, healthy sex is when we can show up fully and we're not compartmentalized. So if we went to visit the in-laws, and you hear your mother talking about, you know, keep complaining about the same thing, you know, and so you get upset about it, and your husband doesn't say anything, and then you come home, and this is about the 10th time is the same thing. You've talked about it. Obviously, the sex is not gonna be good because you're upset because you've been treated that way. So these things play a major role in the sexual experience.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just to be clear, you know, when you first started today, you said that you talked about understanding who we are. So in a nutshell, self-definition is really about that, understanding who we are? Okay.
Yes, very much. That's what it is. Yes.
Thanks.
And be able to set those boundaries, and again, protecting who you are. That's what it is, you know, protecting who you are so that you can be the best you.
So if you say you're courting and you think you understand this thing about boundaries very clear,
right?
But the person that you're courting, they really don't want to have a discussion about boundaries, because as far as they're concerned,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I suspect that something is not quite right there.
Right. So, and if you go back to what we talked about earlier, because you're in a healthy space, you feel good about who you are, you know what you want in life, you know what this is about, and you meet someone. I usually say to young people, and for the dating and engaged on here, don't get in a relationship because you need something, because that something will ultimately be met, or you'll want more of it, and it wouldn't be the way you want it, and you'll be in trouble. Okay, so then you also get manipulated in a relationship. You get treated badly because you came in for it because you needed something. You need to get away from home. You needed to feel protected. You needed whatever. Okay, that's not going to help. What you want to do is to be in that place. And for those of us who have kids on here, you want to be in that place where you have this self-definition. You have this thing about life that you want to share your life with someone who is going to help you to be more of what you're trying to become, and you can help them. But once they don't want, you start dating someone, you realize, they're not listening to you, or they're not want to keep your boundaries or whatever, and you talk to them about it and they keep insisting, you need to realize they're not invested in my interests. Keep pushing me to cross my boundaries means it's about them. And therefore, I need to leave this relationship because it's not in my best interest. I looking for a relationship where I can invest in you, you can invest in me, we can help each other to be the best we can. But you're trying to force me to break my boundaries. You don't want to talk about it. You just say, oh, I love you. Are you hearing me? Do you hear what I want? Can you be part of that? And so that's important, very, very important. If someone is not respecting your boundaries, I say, after many conversations, it's not going to end well. So you better decide. I don't need to be there.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. If we have no more questions on the whole self-definition, I hope I was able to be clear on that. So
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is supposed to be for advice for people that are dating. But what if you're already married and you're both set in your ways as it relates to boundaries, right?
Yeah.
But there may be some things that you have issues with that you would like to set a boundary. How do you get your spouse to agree with that when they're already set in their ways and you're already set in yours? How do you put a boundary there?
Okay. So I guess the question has to be, how am I contributing to help you to be the best that you want to be? And so to be able to say, and again, you're right. Some people are open and they want to listen and they want to change to help you to be better. And some people, they're not going to change because this is about, they be selfish. They want what they want. But what I usually say is, even if they're selfish and they want what they want, you're still responsible for you. Where possible, to not put yourself in a space where that boundary will be crossed. You need to protect yourself if the person is not willing to, but the conversation has to be around, how are we helping each other, to be better? And so this hasn't been working, or this needs to change, or this used to work then, but I think it works better now, and have those kind of conversation. But we both have to be willing to want to talk about it. But if one person doesn't want to talk about it, that doesn't mean you leave yourself exposed to be constantly having that boundary violated. You need to be able to pull back some and be careful some, so you don't allow yourself to be constantly ignored and mistreated. But it's important for you to take care of you by even addressing the boundaries issue with the other person. And if they don't want to hear it, they want to talk about it, they say that that's your issue, that's your problem. Well, then you have a responsibility to make sure that you look out for you, that you don't allow yourself to be treated that way, because the other person doesn't really care about you. They just want to be where they are.
Galaxy, I see that hand. You may proceed with your question.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning all. I'm just saying to myself, I'm listening to the questions and the whole session, and the person who just asked the question about if you're already married, right? And these things.
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't want to assume that we all believers on this platform right now.
Right.
But
Right.
if we are believers, right? When do
Yeah.
we actually start looking into the word of God for answers? And my thing is that, you have the scripture talk about us being a new creation. And we know
Yeah.
as believers that we don't turn new creation like we give our lives to Christ now and in the next 10 minutes we brand new. It doesn't happen like that. It's a work in progress. And if
Right.
I'm constantly stuck in my ways and I don't want to change, that is selfishness and it's not a fruit of the spirit. All I'm saying
Right.
is that we have to look into the word of God for the answers. There are things that hinder the marriage from growing, and those things will not be hindered if the scripture say that um we destroyed by lack of knowledge. And I want to say, our marriage is destroyed by a lack of knowledge. A multitude of sin is what was the word now? Love covers a multitude of sin. So
Right.
what is love? At the end of the day, if we practice what the word of God teaches us as believers, I can't see a marriage struggling for no 25 and 27 years and we're still trying to figure out that I stuck in my ways and you set in your ways. We have to look to God for answers. And if we're not looking to God for answers, we will be stuck.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
We will be stuck.
After all,
Just when you spoke about the boiled egg, sorry, pardon me, when you spoke about the boiled egg a while ago, right? I was having a discussion here with some folks, and saying that how do you figure out as a person I'm ready for marriage and you can't even boil an egg, right? So one of the guys here said that, well, so are you gonna marry somebody because they can cook? I say no, but list 20 things for me as a man that you want in a wife. What keeps a man? And at the end of the day, we have to know, even before we step into a marriage, we step into a long life thing. If we're gonna stay in this long life thing, we have to know that we have the keys that will open the doors to fruitful and blessed marriage. If we can't have the keys, we ain't ready for it. Because if I have to send you by your mother for lunch, she'll say, but I tell them go ahead by your mother.
You're breaking
The
up.
last thing you want to tell a man is go ahead by your mother. Because he will stay there.
Yeah.
She said that is not a problem. I say, well, you all are Christians or something like this. You know? Sorry about the breakup thing. I am in the bush a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That's
So
all right.
you want to know that you
Yeah.
have certain things. You have certain things before you actually step into a marriage that can help you keep your marriage alive. You want to know how to cook. You want to know how to nurture. You want to know how to love yourself.
Right.
So then you wouldn't have that kind of stubbornness in, well, we're set in our ways and we can't change.
Right. Right.
It's not fruit of the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And when I do the presentation next week and I talk about emotional wounds, we'll deal with a lot of that to see where that's coming from. But that's the purpose of dating. That's the purpose of good, healthy premarital counseling. That helps people to look at these things and talk about these things, and be able to know that. And when we get into marriage, it's for better or for worse. We can never start knowing that it's all going to work out down the road. But what we do know is, because this is a covenant, a God-ordained covenant, that whatever happens, we're in it for the end. We're going to stay, because you get married, and little after you get married, something happens to your spouse, and your spouse is physically become disabled, and for the next how many years you have to care for them, and you wouldn't even see that coming, but for better or for worse. But the growth and the development, and a thing I'm working with right now, and I'm talking about it in other places, but the thing I'm talking about right now is, I think in the West and in the Caribbean, the whole West approach to Christianity, our Christianity is in our heads, and we haven't really opened our lives for the real transformation that takes place in us, that really connects us to God. So we know all of the do's and the don'ts and all of that, and when the pressure comes, we do the don'ts, and we don't the do's, because it's still in our heads. But when we experience that real transformation that Paul talks about, it changes us so deeply that the do's, the don'ts doesn't come that easily for us, because we are deeply transformed. And that's a whole new conversation. But you're right, living out the marriage the way God calls it to live. I talk about, Paul talks about in Ephesians, where husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church, and women, wives are to respect their husband. Well, which woman wouldn't submit and respect the husband who is willing to treat her the way Christ treats his church? But getting there, it's a transforming work. It's not just a head thing. It's an internal transformation that has to take place for us to get to that place to say, I can be to my wife as Christ is to the church. So yeah, the Bible is our direction for how we live this out. Okay, let me move you on. We have one final one before we hit the time. Sexual comfort. A conversation that will raise a little discomfort for you, but we'll talk about it anyway. Okay. Sexual comfort is something of an oxymoron in today's culture, where sexuality is either hidden, as we have talked about earlier in this already, and not talked about, or distorted and used by corporations and media as a selling tool in every conceivable way. So everything is about how things show up sexually. So it's this external thing, and how comfortable we are to be able to deal with sex, not as this sexual, almost pornographic, everything sex way of looking at life, but being able to have this comfort. So to develop comfort with sexuality, we must work against very strong forces. Okay, and here it is. One, centuries of religio-cultural imperatives against enjoying pleasure and sex. The church, the church for centuries has made sex this very negative experience that it doesn't, as we're talking about it here now, and for a lot of you on this platform, you never talked about sex like this. You never been, or taught about it, or had any conversation at the level we're talking about it here, because the church tries so desperately to separate the two. Okay, to separate the two, that sex became something that we left out there, and pleasure. And there was this for a long time in the church. We weren't supposed to have pleasure. We weren't supposed to enjoy anything. You're supposed to walk around with this frown on your face because you're a Christian, and you have to be serious and take everything serious, And I can still remember some, when I first came into the church, I met some Christians, and man, everything is so serious, and there is no joy, there is no excitement, there is no, So even the thought of pleasure, if from a sexual perspective, the church set us up there. Then our modern day culture, discomfort with sex and the no talk rules, not talking about sex, not making sex something that we make an issue, that we raise, that we talk about. So as we're doing on this platform. So the no talk, the church's negative thing, and then our own inner resistance, okay? Makes it uncomfortable. And for some of us, it's inner resistance because of abuse, or how we were told, our sexual image. You don't talk about it because, it's a body thing, or you're told it was dirty, or you were sexually abused, so you don't want to go there. So you have an inner resistance to it. When we talk about sexual anorexia and emotional wounds, I will show you what I'm talking about next week. But these things now, we don't have comfort with sex. Okay, we struggle to be comfortable to talk about sex and sexuality in an open way, in a free way, in a comfortable way. So when the sexual topic comes up, we get quiet, or we laugh it off, we get uncomfortable. We can't talk about vagina and penis and sex and orgasm, and feeling good. These are words, that in my own vocabulary for a long time, I couldn't say those words because I was just conditioned to. That's private thing, you don't. private parts. You don't, because we were just made to have this distancing and this very negative and almost scary thing. So the first task then in becoming more comfortable with our sexuality is to notice and report our discomfort. So by that, what I mean is just stop for a while and think, what are the things for you that are uncomfortable about sex? And I'm not talking about just about the sex act itself and what's happening there, but what about your sexuality do you find difficult to read or even think about? When you're in your, and then the next one is about the act itself. But the first one is just think, what is difficult? It's difficult for you to say vagina, orgasm, penis, is it when someone begin to talk about sex, do you feel uncomfortable? Does it makes you feel, and I'm not talking about just making a joke about sex. I'm just talking about a healthy sexual conversation. You're talking to, can you talk to your partner, your spouse about intimate sex thing, what feels good, what doesn't, what become distracting, what you wish you would stop doing, what you wish you'll do more of, to be comfortable to talk about that, to say, when you do this is really good and it really helps me, and I, the sex is great, but when this happens, it kind of, distracts me, and it's a little irritating or whatever. But can you have those kind of comfortable conversation without the discomfort that, talking about it, and not feeling ashamed to say it, but to allow yourself to have that comfortable conversation. But when you pay attention to those feelings and you take time to talk with your partner about them, you can begin to see what lies at the root of your discomfort. See, once you begin to, have those open little conversations about how you're feeling and what was good and what, and what makes you feel uncomfortable, and or when you say this, when you do that, talk about it. Some people prefer to be absolutely quiet during the sexual experience. Some people like to talk to each other, talk out their feelings, express that. Is it working? Is not, but to have that, you talk about everything else, okay? We talk about the budget, we talk about painting the house, we talk about the car, we talk about the children, we don't talk about the sex. We just go and just kind of do it and get over it, and all the things we're talking about today that makes it what it is. But I think this is one of the biggest area that a lot of couples, because of the background they come with, talking about it is difficult. So communicating about your sexual desire is crucial for a satisfying sex life, but it can be one of the hardest things for couples to do. And I could hear some of you on the call saying, yep, it is difficult. But you're going to have to venture out there if you want your sex to be really satisfying and good, and stop some of the things that makes it uncomfortable and turns you off, and you check out and you just let the process finish so you can be over, because or you feel we have with some people, because of abuse and different things, they struggle. So some people, they struggle with arousal, and it takes them a while, but once they get aroused, they can enjoy the sex, and then they can have an orgasm and then go. Some people, they can get aroused, but then they struggle, to reach orgasm, or they never reach it because, of a lot of things happening to them, and something changes and it's going all right, but then your partner does something that kind of, lowers down the heightened feeling you're experiencing, but you don't talk about it, so it robs you of the orgasm, and or you have the orgasm, but you're unable to cool down, but just talk about it, so you can help each other to have a satisfying sex life, and begin to, one of the thing we know in the research that we do is that more women, a higher percentage of women don't experience orgasm because, for one thing, the guys are not thinking about all that it takes. Like I said, the sex doesn't start in the bed. But if we're talking about the things I'm talking about here today, to get ready, then orgasm becomes a lot more possible. And then when you get into the act, because the guys are not thinking about what does it take for, is he really focused on, and this is what I'm talking about, healthy sex is mutually nurturing. I want to do for you what will help you to make this a meaningful experience, and vice versa. So it's not just about me, it's about me making sure you're okay, and vice versa. Okay, so but you have to have that comfort so you can do that for each other, or else it's going to be this discomfort, this not talking, and for years. And then after a while you get turned off from the idea of sex, and then sex become less and less and less. And then I have a good friend back in the States, and we went, friends, and we're talking and working together, and he's telling me, and he says, my wife and I haven't had sex for 12 years, but he's trying to work with this, and he's trying to, and I'm thinking, I'm just thinking there, I can't even imagine that. But he's having to figure out how to work with this. And a lot of it is to do with, because there's not a lot of conversation around what works and what doesn't work. And then the interest is lost. And after a while it is, but I am saying, how could you live in a really fully satisfying, mutually upbuilding marriage, and the sex is not happening and fulfilling and enriching, and that the sex experience itself turns out to be nurturing, self-nurturing. So sexual comfort then is conversation, is changing your thinking about sex, and being able to be more free about it. Don't be so uptight and so private and so afraid, but work through those boundaries and those barriers, and change those old way of thinking and become comfortable with talking about your sex and your sexuality, so that you can make it a more pleasurable experience, for when you come together, because you're getting what you want and you're giving what the other person wants. But that's only possible. So we could talk about good self-image, but if you have a good self-image, you can talk about sex. See, so all of these things come together. You get more comfortable because you have your boundaries you can talk about. Okay, if you are self-nurturing, you know how to take care of yourself. Then you know to say what I need that'll make me feel nurtured, and I can give to you what you need to make you feel nurtured. So again, it's being able to convey that and talk about that. Okay. All right. Any questions on sexual comfort?
I would like to ask, the sexual comfort you're saying then will it include from where you started from the beginning with the nurturing, and then you come down to the image and the all the different steps that you're taking here?
Yes. Yes.
That encircles all that until you get to the actual experience.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because you can't talk about sexual comfort if the self-image is not in place, and the self-definition, and and the nurturing. So you need all of those things to contribute for you, so you can feel that sense of confidence and safety that you can talk about it. Because, and let me just say this, when you have this healthy sense of self and who you are, then I say to people, I don't think it's anything you can say to me that could embarrass me, or you call me a name that embarrassed me, or say something, because I know who I am. And when people say things to me, I don't take it personally and say, well, something's wrong with me, because I have a healthy self-definition. I have a healthy self-image. So even if I'm talking about sex and someone say, make a comment about sex, I don't take it personally. So even to talk about sex, because those things are necessary. You want to be nurtured, you know your self-definition, you have a healthy self-image. Then when you come to talking about sex, you can, because that is part of the making the sex healthy. So yes, those have to happen for you to get here. Anyone else? Questions, comment?
Rev, what you're saying is indeed interesting, and throughout our lives, especially coming up through the church, we have been not nurtured to think that this is okay. Even when we look back at your talk on our sensuality and stuff like that, a lot of the things that you are referring to today somehow has been placed in a category of making us think that something is wrong with us when we feel that way, when we have those sort of sensual feelings, when we have a healthy self-image of who we are, and we're not moved by what people say to bring us down. You often hear that you are arrogant. So it is interesting that you have brought it from this perspective today.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello there.
Go ahead. Yes.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, for there to be sexual comfort, I strongly believe that if we, as husband and wife, truly know how to care for each other, this could happen.
Yes.
And it's also based on mutual respect for each other.
Yes. Yes.
I'll break down the word care for you. Yes. I'll explain. Most times people say they care about each other, but if only we practice these 4 words, we can truly care. Yeah. We have to be considerate of the person's feelings, have consideration for that person.
Right.
The second thing would come in place would be appreciation. Always be thankful, but not only thankful in words, but your action should speak loud volume that you are thankful. Right. And your responsibility for your own actions. Do not blame the person for your shortcomings. And all of this you spoke of before. And the last one I believe in, encouragement. Encourage your spouse instead of putting down your spouse. And with this, there will be sexual comfort. And there's one thing also I also believe in, and I always say that if to my husband, though my husband is not a believer as yet, in fact, he says that in his mouth, but that's not what God says. I must say, I believe in mutual respect, because I tell people, when I look at the Bible, I do not debate doctrine with anybody. What I believe about the Bible, it is simple for me. The revelation of the Bible to me is simple. That in the Old Testament, God wants to be mankind's general manager from Genesis to Malachi. When I look at this whole Bible book, this is what God wants. In the New Testament, he truly, from Matthew to Revelation, he wants us to have mutual respect one for each other. And if that could happen, we wouldn't have all the problems that we're having now as husband and wife.
Right.
And you, thank you so much for pouring out all of this information on us and to me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, and I just want to comment on something you said that is so important for us to remember. I often say to people, don't treat your spouse the way you think they deserve based on how they're treating you. Treat your spouse the way God wants you to treat them. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do, because we are often allowing our emotions to make our decisions for us. And, you know, we need to live in mutual respect. You know, my wife and I we mutually respect each other. We look out for each other. We care about each other. We want to make sure. But we made a commitment, you know, when we got married almost 32 years ago. We said, marriage is not, divorce is not an option. So nobody's going anywhere no matter what happens. And some of you have heard our stories, and you know, and as well as to build up each other, to be there, to lift each other up, to help each other. But in cases where you have a couple where one couple doesn't show respect for the other, you don't treat that person the way you think they deserve to be treated because they don't show respect for you. When you do that, then you don't show respect for yourself. But you have to start with respect for yourself, so that when someone disrespects you, you don't react in a way that shows you don't respect yourself. You can hold where you end, they begin. You can maintain your respect for yourself. So what the sister is saying is mutual respect is crucial to a successful marriage. But what I just want to encourage you, if there's a partner who is not respecting, you need to be respecting for yourself and showing respect for them. Don't treat them the way you think they deserve to be treated based on the way they're behaving. Treat them the way God wants you to treat them. Okay? All right. Any other question?
We have one other question, Rev.
Okay.
Is oral sex permitted in the Christian faith?
Okay. Excuse me. That's a good question. And what I would say is this. When it comes to what happens sexually as a couple, let's go back to what we were talking about earlier. Is it mutually nurturing and satisfying and fulfilling for both? That's how you have to answer that question, because the Bible doesn't say anything about oral sex, but it does talk about sex. Okay. So what I believe is God, under the covenant of marriage, sex is between these two people. And if oral sex is mutually satisfying and working for both, and they're nurtured and they're fulfilled, they're not doing anything wrong, because the Bible doesn't say oral sex is a sin. That's my answer to that question.
We have one more comment in the chat, and we're going to read that before you go ahead.
Yeah. Yes.
Growing up as a teenager in Barbados, our family and friends as Christians will always look or think like you cannot talk about sex. But in my opinion, how will you gain the knowledge if you do not have these conversations? It's time this is addressed within the churches and our homes, so that the next generation will know what is expected, and they do not have to hide what they're doing.
Right. And that is what Reverend Lawrence and myself are passionate about on this platform, that we're hoping that we could start a new conversation and people being able to talk about this like this. And like I said, this is not just a platform conversation. It's not just a Saturday seminar conversation. This is a Sunday morning from the pulpit conversation. People need to hear how God designed and intends sex to be, and people need to be educated. So I am totally on board with that, with that comment that the church needs to shift away from this old way of how they have presented sex and sexuality to us, and really come back and see. And when I talk about sexuality and spirituality, so many times God, and I said it earlier, God refers to the relationship with Israel from a sexual way, because it is so intimate and it is so meaningful and it has so much, commitment to it, that's what God uses so many times to talk about Israel in how they relate to him. So yes, the church needs to get back to understand more about how God designed and intended sex for us. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So was someone going to make a comment, or can I move on?
Yes, you can wrap up for Reverend Karim.
Yes, I'm about to wrap up now with my final statement on safe sex. I talked about that's in my thing, safe sex. So this is what I mean by safe sex. Healthy sexuality gives life to another, bringing an aspect of healing and freedom founded in an environment of safety, acceptance, and celebration of one another. That is safe sex. You don't have to have the light turned off. You don't have to be afraid. You can show up and you can fully engage and experience the ecstasy and the intimacy and the full nurturing experiences God intended sex to be. That is safe sex. And when those 5 things I talked about, when you pay attention to those areas in your life and you develop those areas in you and you grow in those areas, both you and your partner, you're going to have safe sex. And safe sex is a sex of freedom in an environment of safety, acceptance, and celebration of one another. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my closing remark. Safe sex.
Wow. Well, we want to thank you so much, Reverend Karim, for what you have shared with us today. It's just amazing, all that you have provided for us and all the information that we need. Someone spoke about her mind being transformed, and that's what it
Yes.
is about, being transformed by the renewing of our mind. Because if our
Yes.
minds are not transformed, then we're going to continue doing things the same way and looking for things to be different, and it's not going to happen. And so
Right.
thank you for helping us to change the conversation. You have
Yes.
impacted us as parents. I've seen questions coming up concerning our children. You've
Yes.
impacted us as individuals, as wives, as husbands. You've impacted us as leaders in the church. And
Yes.
we continue these conversations. And so before we share with you some other initiatives that we're having, I'm going to ask Minister
Reverend,
Eva. Yes, sir.
Reverend, before you pray,
Yes.
I need to show this final slide.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, put this final slide in there. Sorry, I stopped one slide short. I think this is important for you to see this. Safe sex is what's supposed to be. It is supposed to be one of the ways we can be totally vulnerable to another person and yet still feel totally safe because of the love, mutuality, the tenderness, the joy, and the playfulness and the physical pleasure which sex involves. If you could imagine with me for a moment the kind of sex is taking place in that statement, it is, as they would say, mind-blowing. That's my final slide.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, before we share some other things, that's Pastor Eva Woods, just pray for us at this time.
Pleasant morning to everyone. Father, we honor you today. We give you praise and we give you thanks. You are God and God alone. Our Father, we said to you this morning, it's not by might, it's not by power, but by your spirit. Father, we want to give you a high note of praise and thanks for your servant, for your manservant this morning. Father, he pour out, he pour out, he pour out. Daddy, today we wish that the churches today could have him to pour into the couples, especially that are new coming up in this time. Father, many more marriage would last. But oh God, you know, for years, what has been hiding from the churches. And Daddy, we pray that you may, as you empower your manservant, that he may continue teach those who are on this platform week after week, that they can pass on to others. Mighty God, it's only you can do it for us right now. We need your help. We need your help in this sexual life, Daddy, that marriages can see something as a comfortable thing to couples today. So Daddy, we thank you for your servant. We thank you for empower him. We thank you for use him. Continue to use him for your honor and for your glory in this season, mighty God, because of who you are. Jesus, we adore you for your manservant this morning. God, Daddy, continue to lift him up on high this morning, that he will continue pour out in this time, mighty God. He will not forget anything, Daddy, that you pour into him to pour out to others, that others can know that in everything they need to hear what they have to hear today about this sex life. Father, you know what is happening right now around the world. But Daddy, may you continue to use this man to proclaim your word around the world. Oh God, from nation to nation, mighty God. From country to country, mighty God. Use him for your honor and for your glory, God. That in the name of Jesus, we know that as he continue, Daddy, you will continue to let your Holy Spirit impart in him, and that you will continue to help him to go from strength to strength, even in this time, mighty God, that he can reach out to others, mighty God. Thank you for him, mighty God. Thank you Daddy, we give you praise and we give you thanks. In spite of what the enemy plot, Daddy, you will continue to use this man of God. You will continue to make every crooked path straight for him in the name of Jesus, because of who you are. It's only you can do it, Daddy. So we are depending upon you to continue to cover him and his family under your blood. Cover him where he go and wherever he have to produce to us and other nations, Daddy. Continue to cover him under your blood, mighty God. He will not lack anything, mighty God, because as you continue to pour into him, he will pour out to others, mighty God. And you will continue to fill him and use him day by day, that others can be strengthened and encouraged. Father, I know this morning there are many, many on this platform. Father, they have food to chew into their marriage, and God is all because you pour into him that he can pour out to them. So that he will say, thank you. Thank you. May thou continue to bless and keep him. In Jesus' name, we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Sister Eva. Amen.